All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited. Um, One of my best friends in the world. I've told you that before, and if you've been following me long enough, you know I call him Midas. He has produced so many great things, and look, he has Welcome to Wrexham is another show that he is one of his big hit shows that he's got a new season of. He did Val, the late great Val Kilmer, and he did this, and he actually gave me. I got to see this before a lot of people did, and it was just such a moving thing, and that's just Chef's Table, so many different things that he's done, and I haven't talked to him in a bit as far as on air, and I was like, you know what, I just want to have Andrew on because I think the audience likes to hear from him, likes to hear his stories, and that's it. So I'm gonna do. I'm gonna bring on my buddy Andrew Freed. What's up, Andrew? How you doing?
Nice to see you, Christian,
Nice to see you too.
and
So
nice to be here.
yes,
I take great compliment in the fact that your community has any interest in engaging with me in this way over and over again. So if that's true, then that's very cool for me.
I just think it's cool. I think it's always interesting to hear like how, and I like to recap the journey of people too, and the idea of like, and I was telling this story about you recently. I can't remember to who, but I was saying, yeah, my friend Andrew really did something amazing. Like the two of us met in L.A. We're both from New York. When we met, it was like we were both getting into stand up, and we both became friends through stand up comedy and mutual friends, obviously. But like you had such a different journey because you were like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to work in the family business. Didn't really go that way because you were like, that's not what I want to do. I want to be in entertainment, and you can't, and you had to like kind of have this battle, not battle, I shouldn't, battle's not the right thing, but like, I guess a battle within,
Yeah,
and so then turning that into, and I don't know, have we ever told the story when we were sitting down and we're talking about like the whole Mike Tyson side of it all?
I don't know. Our lunch and I mean, we've had so many. Here's the
Yeah,
nice thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And as we get older and I get grayer, these things do start to crystallize uh, even more clearly, right? Because I don't remember which conversation was about which, or whether we were sitting at South Beverly Grill when we talked about that one thing, or if
right,
we were sitting somewhere else when we talked about the other thing. But I do know that over time we have very meaningful conversations at these like almost these inflection points, but
yeah,
like they're almost like gifts from the universe where
yeah,
you and I are talking about what we have done, what we were originally trying to do,
right.
what now we're trying to accomplish, and if we have any chance at figuring it out. And I like that about
It's
us.
hilarious that you say that because it's so true. I remember in when I was in that because it goes both ways, right? Because of the crossroads period of my life when I was doing stand up and I was still interested in wrestling and WWE and all that, and again our mutual friend Trevor Engelson was like, hey, you know, you're gonna write something, get something out there, do something, and I wrote these storylines, but then you were helping me with crafting the letter to Vince McMahon and Stephanie McMahon and helping me. And I'll never forget what you said though when I was getting there. You said, "Here, look, here's I think you gave me like $5 or $10, whatever it was, and you go, take this, and the first person you see who's in need of it, give it to them when you get there." Do you remember this?
Yeah, it's a it's thank you so much for giving me the excuse to tell this story,
Go
which
ahead,
I
go
never get to
go ahead,
tell.
tell.
So my uh, girlfriend in high school, her name was Danielle Paris.
Okay.
She still is her name. I guess she's married now, so it's no longer her name. But anyway, her dad was a professional basketball player in like the pre-NBA days. He had played at City College in the 30s,
Mm-hmm.
like was a national championship. But like, when you see the real scratchy footage of basketball when the key was actually shaped like a key,
Sure.
um, and he had this, when they traveled in those professional sports days, it was gnarly. And he was a very nervous traveler. And so he used to have this tradition of folding up a dollar bill in a particular shape so that it's folded and the one is
Mm-hmm.
like all you can see. And that was his tradition. And he used to do it to me. Hey, when you get to wherever you're going, give this to somebody who needs it.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I try to keep that tradition. I haven't done that in a while, but I'm glad I did that with you.
I remembered it. And that was 25 years ago, whenever, or 23 years ago, whenever it was. And I remember it like
Yeah.
it was yesterday. And so, yeah, we have had that. I mean, even, and I told this story on the air about the whole thing with the punching bag and the Jake Paul thing. And that was Andrew's event that he was so kind to invite me to. And it's the other thing, like, let's start with that. How do you get involved with the Paul brothers, right? How does that come to be? And how do they, like, do they say, like, hey, we see all this stuff that you're doing, you take these meetings, so you take meetings all the time with people. How do you decide that you wanted to do this particular show?
So they all come about differently.
Yeah.
I am always happy to talk, like, beyond, like, it's not like, oh, I'm happy to as a courtesy. I am thrilled to be able to talk to anyone ever about what we do and to try to see if there's a version of something that I could do with somebody, right?
Yeah.
Whoever it is.
Yeah.
Famous person, Ryan Reynolds, or person who I never met before. But, like, oh, if there's a chance for us to talk about something that we could cruise on, like, yeah, let's do that. That project, though, in particular, I work with a filmmaker named Andrew Renzi. He has a company north of Now, who my company Boardwalk has an overall deal with. And he had directed an episode of Untold with Jake Paul.
Okay.
And so this was an offshoot of that, of, like, his experience making that about Jake, what he felt about it initially, what he then grew to appreciate about it.
Right.
And this idea of, what if we really did a show? Is it a reality show? Is it a documentary? Is it somewhere in between? I think that's the beautiful space that a lot of the work that we do tries to occupy. And so, but from an initial conceit, no, that was not a case of, like, taking a meeting. Now, I will say this. Our company, as we've talked about through the years, we've done lots of different work, and you're always a huge champion of what we're doing, and I appreciate that. But, I think in the last few years, we've had to embrace the idea that a lot of the shows that we used to make just aren't on mainstream network streamers,
Right.
et cetera, anymore, right? It's funny to think of Netflix as traditional media, but at this point it is. And shows that we used to make, there are great shows on Netflix that we made, like Home Game, which was about sports, and each episode was a different cultural sporting event around the world. Like, go watch the Calcio Storico episode of Home Game and tell me that show isn't, like, killer, right? And we did a show called Action about sports betting. We did it on Showtime. We did all these shows. I like to say that, like, these shows that line the back stairwell, like all the posters that are hung in the back stairwell here, like, those were killer shows. We loved making them, and they're not really on, again, I say with air quotes, like, mainstream television anymore.
Right.
And so we, for the last few years, realized that if we're going to be able to continue to do what we do the way we do it, it has to be bigger, right? We saw it with Welcome to Wrexham.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the new documentary version now is two really, really famous people, one of the most famous people on the planet. And then they shine a light on something that is really sweet and charming, and is increasingly less sweet and charming as it just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's maybe the creative tension that's exciting about it, right? But, like, that became sort of the new template. And so in a world where we're the people who produced Cheer, Greg Whiteley directed 2 seasons of Cheer, and we won a bunch of Emmy Awards for that, and had a whole bunch of other nominations that we lost to the Beatles and Peter Jackson with. But
good people to listen to.
It's a decent company. But when we had made 2 seasons of Cheer, this very, very successful show, and then realized for a series about cheerleading to live on, it would have to reimagine itself to be America's Sweethearts, which is about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. That's a real shift in what's happening. And I'm talking shop because I know that your audience likes to talk. And so that was a real shift. And so there's 2 questions that remain there. Number one is, okay, how do we make really the biggest version of what we do? Enter Jake and Logan Paul, right? Like, that is an amazing opportunity to have that social experiment. And then number 2, how do we find audiences to engage with? How do we find communities to engage with in a very modern media landscape to be able to tell those stories that
Right.
we used to tell? Um, Probably at a slightly different price point, and probably, a lot of different creative um, changes that we would want to make to it. But it becomes a real exciting part of what we're doing now, which is, yeah, there's Jake and Logan Paul. We did a show with the Boston Red Sox. We
Right.
did a show with
So,
the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
how you
We
choose
got
how you
Welcome
choose
to
the Red
Wrexham.
Sox? How you choose the Red Sox? You Yankee fan. How you do that?
I didn't fully realize how that all came about. It was sort of it was a made hand.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully appreciate it until I saw our lead executive at Netflix at a concert at the Hollywood Bowl, and he was wearing a New England Patriots hat. And I was just like, oh, you're a Boston guy.
Right.
Like, of course, I should have known. But I did not know that he was a New England guy before I saw him at the Hollywood Bowl. But yeah, like, again, Greg Whiteley used to do Last Chance U. That was
Right.
about D3 football programs in Mississippi,
Yeah.
and or at least in its inception. And now he's doing the Boston Red Sox, and it used to be cheerleaders in West Texas, and now it's cheerleaders in Dallas, with a big star on the
Yeah.
field. So it's an evolution.
Well, this is something I wanted to ask you too. Is that you do so much? I mean, because you're as I mentioned in the intro with the stuff you did with Val and like just you've always been big into the pop culture stuff, movies and TV. Like I remember watching at your place watching The Sopranos and West Wing and stuff with you. But like a lot of the stuff that you've found a lot of success with, as you just mentioned, most of them there are sports oriented, right? Like, what is it in general? Because I know, and it's a lot of stand up comedy. So you also did that Bill Cosby documentary too. You've done a lot of different things that have been all over, but a lot of it seems to jump into the sports stuff. Is that intentional? Is that the stuff that just speaks to you? Like, why is it a lot of the stuff is sports?
Well, it's funny, right? Because it ended up that way, right? So maybe at the beginning, when you and I were younger, and I was like hunting down Bob Costas on Sixth Avenue, like I really, with some intention, did want to be at this intersection of sports and entertainment.
Right.
That was where I thought my interest would lie. But then it just sort of happened that way. What's funny is that in the sports community, I'm sort of a producer, and we're a company that like doesn't really do sports.
Right.
Like, notwithstanding the fact that we do Welcome to Wrexham and we do America's Sweethearts, and there are a couple of sports Emmys on the shelves, and all the stuff that Greg Whiteley has done to this point has been sports related. And we work very closely with him, and so yeah, it just turns out that way. I'll say this though, 30 for 30 changed the landscape, right? So
Yeah.
to your question of, when you go through all the titles that we've done, I think I always wanted to do documentary as mainstream entertainment.
Yeah.
I just wanted it to be entertainment. I didn't want it to be like special category documentary, or even special category sports for that matter. If you go back in time, The Jinx happened on HBO, and then 30 for 30 happened on ESPN. And that was sort of the birth of documentary content being on television. And it's interesting to see, when was that? 2008, I would say,
Yeah.
just off the top of my head. Okay, so now in 2025, the enduring things that are happening in unscripted and documentary really are still true crime and sports.
Right.
Like, we've gone round and round, and I make great food shows that I'm
Yeah.
very proud of, and all the other
You did a
things.
great UFO one too, by the way.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. And yet, what endures globally for these streamers and with audiences, seems to resonate the most has a lot to do with sports,
Right.
and has a lot to do with true crime. I would also add that sports is like a little bit of a cheat code from a storytelling standpoint. There's a beginning, there's an end. Oftentimes, there's a ticking clock. It's heightened stakes. It's heightened emotion. People get carried off the field, as winners, or there's just a lot that goes into it where the stakes are built in, and so as storytellers, you don't have to do an awful lot to it.
Right.
If you watch Greg Whiteley's stuff, whether it's Cheer, or now America's Sweethearts, or he's counting down to something. 5 weeks till the first game, 3 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
sports is always a countdown, and that's, I think, a bit of a storytelling cheat code.
Yeah, and there's
Also
other.
tribal. It's also tribal.
Yeah, there is.
Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's,
yeah,
and I don't know. There's a particular project that I saw of yours. We won't talk. I don't know how much I can say. So I'll just say that there's stuff that you've told stories in different parts of sports and different things that I think it is more. And I think that you are in a certain aspect. And I won't ever say this about you, but you're being humble. I'm kidding. You're very humble. But what you were talking about, I do think that yes, there's a cheat code, but there is also an art to being able to bring that story in an entertainment way and finding the right tools to make that happen, to which you do very well. And that project that I saw was just like, it was just second to none. There's a really, you're following certain people, but you can choose the amount of footage that you have. You can choose to use footage that someone would be like, all right, let's go. Yeah, I get it. You need to show this, but let's move. And you guys just put things in order that it just works, whether it's the thing I'm talking about, whether it's Wrexham, whether it's these other things. And it also, not even just in sports, it's in that storytelling aspect that I mentioned again, and bring it back for the third time, and that's Val. And I got to talk to you about that, especially with his passing and everything that, that to me, I remember you calling me and telling me, I got a really cool thing I'm working on right now, and I want you to take a look at it. And I called you immediately afterwards, and I was just like, dude, this is so incredible. All right, so let's talk about how Val came to be, the project, and just in general, because it's such a fascinating piece of work, and the story behind it is interesting. So how did that all come to be?
yeah. So I had worked for years with Ting Pu, who is one of the co-directors of Val. She was an editor who I had worked with a lot. She came to me. I think we were editing something together, and she said, my friend Leo, who I work very closely with, Leo Scott, who's one of the other who is the other co-director of Val. Um, he needs your advice on something, kind of thing. And so I met with Leo, who's the nicest guy, and what emerged was that he had been filming with Val for now years. Val had conceived of this one-man show, which if you've seen the film, and I would really, I mean,
It's
now
great.
that he's gone,
Yeah.
especially,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful film that Ting and Leo made, um, and that Val made, and that Val's whole family made, honestly. But so, and I can say this now with love and respect, but Val had engaged Leo to do like the behind the scenes of this Mark Twain one man show
Yeah,
that he
right.
was
Yeah, it's
launching.
part of the movie. Yeah.
And so he was filming part of that, and then that became something else, and then that became something else, and then Val's health started to face some challenges, and Leo, in a very documentary filmmaker way, just kept filming.
Yeah.
Whatever was happening, he kept filming. But then you find yourself, years into this,
Yeah.
with all this footage, not really knowing what to do. He had also been simultaneously digitizing all of the footage that Val had shot of himself through the years.
Sure.
And that project was going. But candidly, and I hope he wouldn't mind me saying this, like, he was into it now for
Yeah.
maybe not explicitly money, but you're working a long time on something. Like, it's like, what do I do
Right.
now?
Right.
So we had a meeting. I hope I'm not divulging something that everybody wouldn't want, but so we have a meeting uh, at my office, and Val starts. Now, he of course comes in with scarves around his
Right.
throat,
Yeah.
but he in many ways he's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
He can't really speak. I mean, you know what he sounded like at the end. So, but he's communicating, he's speaking, and he wants to make a reality show where it's about an art gallery that he owns in Silver Lake,
Mhm.
and he's projecting old footage that he shot on the set of, the island of Dr.
Right,
Moreau,
right, right.
and it's projected on the walls, and that's like an art installation. He wanted to like do this TV show. And I was like, yeah, and he wanted to talk about Mark Twain. He wanted to talk about like a whole lot of things. And I said to him pretty candidly in that meeting, I said, yeah, I don't want to do any of that. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I want to get you a standing ovation at Cannes.
Yeah, that's great.
And, you know, there are a few moments in one's life,
Such a
professional
great
career.
Freed line. It's such a great,
And
yeah,
it is. And I have enough distance from it that I
yeah,
can appreciate that
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
And we did.
yeah. You
We
did,
did.
yeah.
And so that was a journey in convincing him to do that. Again, Leo and Ting did an incredible job with that film. It premiered at Cannes to a standing ovation. And look, I think that film, I can say this to you now, my friend who has this engaged community. To me, that film is an exercise in seeing someone who wanted very specific things
Yeah.
and got every one of them. He achieved every single thing that he dreamed of achieving. And as he was achieving them, he kind of either wasn't present enough or kind of took a piss on it at the same time, or it wasn't what he thought it would be. Whatever that struggle was for him, that's what the story of the movie is to me. That might not be what it is to you, but it is what the movie is to me. And the release of it continued to be that, because we got him a standing ovation at Cannes and he was not there.
Oh, right.
And his kids were there, but he was not. And
was he not there? Was he not there because of health stuff, or he just didn't want to go?
I don't know what combination of health stuff, or did he really want to sit in that theater and watch that? I'll never know.
Right.
But he wasn't there. And then we did a big fancy premiere at the Directors Guild on Sunset, and Michael Mann was there. Cool. And it was like the coolest. And Val was not.
Yeah.
And so I love that film exists. We knew, obviously, now we should know this about everything that we make. Someday the subject of our films is not going to be here anymore.
Right.
And so we should make it knowing, especially in a streaming era where these films last forever in a catalog, we should make it like that. And I hope that we do. But his passing, and Clarence Avant, the subject of The Black Godfather, passed, and
such is life, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, like, and that's one of the things that when you're making these stories, a lot of them about these true human stories, and not even necessarily in passing of people dying, but it's like more or less like some of the things that you've got to see, just some of these stories of like you're following them. That is part of this. You could have a lot of happy moments. You can feel a lot of the the sad moments. There's just so much. I mean, I literally could talk to you, and the audience should hear for like 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, a full day, to be honest, of all the different stories that you have. But you're busy.
I appreciate it. What I will say, just to steal the mic a little bit, is Greg Whiteley does this in his shows in particular. There's obviously a ton of this in Wrexham as well. But what I've become a fan of late is the effect of the show on the subjects of the show in later seasons.
Right.
Meaning, if you go back and watch Cheer, the first season of Cheer is about a junior college in West Texas and people who could never have imagined being on TV. Season 2 of Cheer is like Rocky 3.
Right.
They might as well be practicing in the lobby of the plaza.
Well, that's my point.
Right.
And
so, and Last Chance U has those themes, and America's Sweethearts this year has those themes. I love that.
That's what I mean.
Sort of
that's what I'm saying.
Meta.
You get to go through that journey with them, and I've seen you do it. I've seen you be in, in the clouds, and I've seen you be in the shits because of the things that the people that you're working with and the stories you're getting involved with, and it's part of the rush that comes with it, like anything else. But all right, tell me before we let you go here, because I know you're busy, you got things to do. What's going on with Boardwalk? What's the latest? What should people be looking out for?
That's such an exciting question, and I just have to go through my calendar. Look, the reality is that you and I are going to be talking again in the fall
Great.
because I got a good one.
Okay. You just can't talk about it yet.
Can't talk about it
All
yet,
right,
but
fine.
again, I'm not like just amongst friends.
Okay.
We're going to be talking again in the fall.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Well,
We have this film coming out, Shark Whisperer, which is about Ocean Ramsey.
okay.
That comes out on Netflix. I want to say, I don't know, this week before the end of the month.
Great.
And that's really, really cool. Again, America's Sweethearts, that is on Netflix currently. That's season 2 of America's Sweethearts. That's really exciting. And again, these shows last forever. Like
Yeah.
the Clubhouse, the Boston Red Sox series that we did. I know you would prefer that we do it about the Mets. I know that would
The
be.
audience knows you are definitely taking a piss, as you say, with that moment. You just do it on Juan Soto.
We know that Kristian is a fan of a few things: the New York Mets
and pizza,
Chicago pan pizza.
right? Yeah, the audience will know you too well.
But like that show's killer.
Yeah,
I
did hear it's really, really good. By the way, I didn't watch it.
And you talk about like taking things that we watched through one lens,
yeah,
and now understanding it with a different lens and watching it again. Like I don't get anything from getting people to go back and watch a show that released over a month ago, but like I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
And Paul American, right? Like I don't know to what extent your audience has found Paul American on Max, but what we did, and Michael John Warren directed season 1 of that, and what we did there, I'm just so proud of.
Yeah.
We would not have been the expected storytellers for Jake and Logan, obviously.
Right.
But with what we made in the end, I think we're all so proud of it, and the audiences who have engaged with it, I think, have really loved it. And so, I'm pushing that forever.
Well, look, man, like I said, there's so many different things you got, and I'm not surprised that you said that there's going to be something really a good one coming up, because that's usually what happens. You and I will be talking, and then I hear about the new project. I'm like, holy shit, that's a good one. I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to see it. And that eventually is going to happen. It looks like this fall. But Andrew, I'm so excited again with everything that you're doing, and I'm excited that I get a chance to talk to you here, and we'll be chatting real soon.
Love to see you, Kristian, and I'm just so happy to talk to you and connect any way that we can. So thank you for having me.
Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Freed. We will talk to you guys really soon. Go check out all of Andrew's stuff and look him up just to see all the damn credits that he's got. It's great. All right, talk to you later.